look out now. It's the Bourbon and Banter podcast, the biggest and most honest podcast in all of bourbon. That's right, friends and neighbors. We got everything you need to drink curious right here. So sit back, grab a pour, and check your feelings at the door, because we're here to lay it down for you as only Bourbon and Banter can. It's the month for lovers, and your hosts are ready to resume their roles as oversized cupids, armed with whiskey arrows for your sweetheart. Flour and candy don't last, but whiskey does, folks, at least for a little while. So put the Russell's Stover away and reach for the Russell's Reserve. Here we go.
Oh, Bob. Why can't I have chocolate and whiskey all at the same time?
Well, you can. I just said to put it down. You put it down and you pick up the bourbon.
Not a way.
That's how you're cooking with chocolate. See, it's like Jimmy saying how people ask him, I cook with whiskey. He says, yeah, I cook with whiskey all the time. I take a drink of my whiskey and I set it down. Then I put my steaks on the grill. Then I pick the whiskey back up and take another drink. That's cooking with whiskey. Here, you're cooking with you're drinking with chocolate. Have a little drink, have a little chocolate. And for those of you wondering which Russell Stover pairs well, we would always recommend the butter toffee caramel. The butter caramels from Russell Stover will pair well. They used to pair even better back when they weren't made by some gigantic conglomerate that was making 7 million pieces a second. But, do what you got to do. I personally want to remind folks that you can go get those sea salt chocolate-dipped Mojeskas from our friends down there in Louisville at Art Eatables this holiday season. Holiday meaning Valentine's Day. So there's
or Friday.
Or Friday. That's right. Friday, Saturday, 2 times on Sunday. Yeah, just go get them by the truckload, folks.
Well, Bob, I think we got to stop for a second here, and with these images you've conjured up of Cupid, right? I mean, this year it's been a hard year, right? There's been some calories consumed, and my Cupid outfit's going to have suspenders on it this year.
Well, my Cupid outfit is easier. I got a new one. I went down and had an end of the season sale. I got a big red one. It says Coleman Tent Company on the side of it, but it works out just fine as a Cupid outfit.
All right. Well, you can go with the Coleman Tent. I'll add the suspenders to mine, and people won't want to eat any chocolate. They will just want to drink. I guarantee you that.
Well, there could be worse things.
It's very true. I feel sad for this younger generation, right? All the reports are showing that these people, they don't drink. And they need to drink more than any of us with everything that
there's a lot of things they don't use.
That they don't do?
There's a lot of things they don't do, like use logic and reason, read books. I mean, there's a lot of things that these younger generations
put forth effort.
Do.
Yeah, exactly. Put
forth effort, that's right. Strong work ethic, no.
All right, well, moving on from the old man on the porch segment, we got a lot to cover today. I mean, we got a lot of news, releases. We have probably the biggest breaking news story ever, right? This is fantastic. I mean, I
think so.
This one, I mean, if we don't get a news award for this one, there's no hope. And I've always thought there was no hope, but this one has reignited a little bit of a spark for me. So we'll see what happens there, right?
When the Pulitzer Prize unveils the award for bourbon journalism, if this doesn't go to us, I don't know what we could do.
Amen to that. So we're going to kick things off like we always do. We're going to touch base quickly about things going on in the Bourbon and Banter community. If you have not become a member yet, what are you waiting for? All right. You can join for free. You can support us with a little bit of cash. And believe me, the little bit of money you spend is going to save you a lot of money on overpriced, overhyped bourbon. So if you want to avoid that tater tax, you need to join the Bourbon and Banter community. Just head on over to bourbonbanter.com and register, and we'll see you soon. But if you had been a member and if you had joined our Discord community, you would have seen some pretty interesting things this month. First of all, we kicked off and opened up our group therapy sessions. Now, this is a monthly meeting that Bourbon and Banter team members have been doing for years. I mean, probably at least 5, where we get together on a monthly basis, drink some bourbon, talk about the industry, bitch about the industry, and just get to know each other more and more. And we've been doing this for years. So we decided for the community to open this up for our paid members. So if you're even just a social drinker member at $5 a month, you're going to have access to join these. You're going to come on. You're going to meet new people. You're going to hear some insider stories. You never know who's going to drop by. once a month, drop in for 5 minutes, drop in for the whole 2 hours, whatever you want to do. It's a fantastic time, and you never know the crazy shit's going to happen. Right, Bob?
Well, as we say, leave your feelings at the door, because it is a completely uncensored and unscripted hang from us and like-minded folks.
Absolutely. Very like-minded folks. That's right. But along with that, we have the Discord community, and we have a bullshit channel on the Discord community. I'm sure many longtime listeners won't be surprised by that. And there's a great discussion that came up this week about the continuing overpricing of products, okay? And we're talking about single barrels, we're talking about allocated items. But the one that really got the conversation picked up this week was that one of our community members posted that one of their local stores was selling an Eagle Rare pick for $80 a bottle. Now, I'm sorry, $50 a bottle, but the catch was it's a 375 milliliter bottle. So it's a half bottle, and you have to buy it as part of a $100 bundle with a $50 gift card. So you're paying $100 basically to get 375 with a credit to buy something else.
And those are two different scenarios, because one was an $80 private bottle for a $750.
Oh, okay.
The other was the $375 for $50.
Even worse.
But it's part of a $100 package. I don't get where people think this is worth that kind of thing. I mean, really? You're going to spend $100 a bottle, $50 for a $375, $100 for a full $750 of an Eagle Rare pick?
Well, I mean, I could see super fans being willing to do that, but man, for me, that's just it's too much, man. It's too much. It's ridiculous. It ain't worth the squeeze, as they say, right? So we'd love to hear everybody else's feedback on this, because the conversations that we've been having with liquor store owners, other clubs, members, the single barrel market is getting very, very saturated. And we do our own barrel picks as well. And this is driving sort of some shifts in our strategy as well, because a lot of these picks are everywhere. And so they're not that special anymore. And then now people are doing these pricing games with them and trying to basically get people who aren't well educated to pay a lot of money for them. It'll be curious, in my opinion, to see where this all leads us eventually. But I know for our barrel pick community, we're really doubling down and focusing on either things that the group really, really wants to get, or things that we think are going to be unique and different enough that there's not thousands of variations of that very same product in the market. And we won't do that for every pick, but that's where the majority of our effort is going, is getting the things that you're not going to be get anywhere else, because that, quite frankly, is what was used to be so exciting about single barrels, right?
Well, yeah, you turn around now and you've got a dozen of, and you can walk in and see a dozen different single barrels, of none of which you are that interested in. It's like, okay. And they've been sitting there. Some of these have been sitting there for 2 or 3 years. And it's just, there's no, don't buy the barrel just to have, I got a single barrel. If you got a single barrel of shit or uninteresting whiskey, it's still a single barrel of shit or uninteresting whiskey.
Right.
So just knock it off.
So this is some of the conversations that are happening in the group. And once again, nothing's off limit. We want people to come in, ask questions, share their opinions, and let the group jump in. It's a great place to be. No one's going to be rude about it. No one's going to pick a fight. But definitely some of the more interesting discussions that you're going to see in different bourbon forums online can be found in the Bourbon and Banter community. Now, I also want to talk quickly about something that we have, and we don't advertise this very much on the site, but when you sign up to become a member, there's actually another membership level that we don't actively promote, and it's called our Bourbon in the Blind Club. This is a annual membership that can be purchased. Now, it's not inexpensive, but when you join this, you get all the perks of our highest membership tier, plus you're going to get bi-monthly virtual tastings in which we're going to send you out samples of different bourbons and whiskeys that we receive. So these are things that we're receiving from brands. They would like us to taste them. They would like us to review them. Often we do, sometimes we don't, because we can't review everything that we get sent. But it's an opportunity for you as a community member to drink like an influencer, to have access to things that maybe you cannot find, you don't want to pay for, or you want to try before you buy. And to give you an idea, and we typically send out somewhere between 4 and 6 samples every other month. We gather as a group for an hour, hour and a half, and we taste these blind. So you don't know what you're drinking until I unveil it, give you as much information as I can, share everybody's group opinion. It's really a great time because it challenges your palate. You're going to learn a lot. And like I said, hopefully we're going to save you some money. So just over the last 2 tastings, these are just a few of the things. This is not an exhaustive list, but the last couple tastings, we've tasted some of the Larceny releases, most recently the A124, Wild Turkey Generations, right? How many people are going to get a bottle of that? We were able to sample that as a group. Mary Dowling Toasted Double Oak. We tasted Westward Whiskey American Single Malt, their first ever limited edition. It's fantastic. Whiskey Gypsy from Eric Church. Forbidden Bourbon from Mary Ann. Vodka Bourbon. Widow Jane the Vault's 14-year-old. And we've tasted through several of the Michter's 2023 single barrel releases, the most recent one being the 10-year bourbon. But we've also done the 10-year rye as well. So some of these are better than others, but a lot of these are hard to get. Some of them are very expensive. So if you like exploring things, you enjoy blind tasting, and you're interested in something like this, become a member and drop me a note, pops@bourbonbanter.com. I can send you a special link for you to sign up. There are limited spots, but we have a few open right now. If that's your type of thing and you want to kind of really dive into drinking curious, we hope to see you join soon.
I didn't get to try any of that stuff.
I know. That's because you don't leave your house.
Hey, damn it, I do leave the house. You just don't tell me to come pick up the shit. Don't even start that. Don't pull a Brent now. Come on.
Well, on a more positive note, something that you have had, I just got my bottles today. I haven't cracked them open, but our Green River barrel pick finally arrived. We picked this back in October. It was a 6-year-old barrel, 6-year, 9-month barrel. It was a high rye, traditional mash bill bourbon, and it was absolutely fantastic. And those bottles just showed up. And Bob, did you crack it open? Take a few sips? What do you think?
I did crack it open. It's very nice. It's very nice. It's the only thing that I'll say is the thing that everybody else will say is, I only wish they bottled it at barrel strength.
Well, here's what you need to know here, folks. Green River didn't start with a barrel proof single barrel program. They did what they call full proof. So what is it, 119 proof?
Yeah, I think it's 119
so
or 112.
Our bottle was only like 126 in the barrel, so we didn't lose much proof. But here's the thing, which makes our barrel pretty unique, is it is the first and last foolproof bottle ever to come through the St. Louis market. So it's the first because obviously we were the first ones to bring it in. It's the last because with 2024 now on the books, they have moved to a full barrel proof program moving forward. And what's really cool is that they're doing their high rye, they're going to be doing their wheat, and eventually they're going to start offering their brand new rye whiskey, which is fantastic, also as part of the barrel proof. So we will be going back to that well, perhaps maybe even as soon as the end of the year, to do another barrel pick.
And this is their own stuff. It's their own distillate. It is what ours is about 6.5 years old. Yeah, a little over 6 years, 9 months. And it is fantastic stuff, folks. It is fantastic stuff. When we were down there, the guys were picking the barrel down there, and I had them ask, how do they keep the owners from coming in and taking the whiskey to take off to, they're owned by BBC. Wanted to know how do they keep the folks, how's their security keeping BBC from coming in there and stealing the good bourbon to go blend with that bullshit. And then they said, well, who allowed this person to speak? Who allowed this person to ask this question? And they presumably tried to throw me out, although I wasn't there.
Well, I went up and told them, I said, listen, we usually don't let Brett Atlas come on these trips, but in the future, just put his name on a list. Don't let him in. You'll be fine.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yes.
I threw him off your scent. You're good.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. But it's a fantastic thing, and it's also coming in at a very reasonable price. What is retail on that, Pops? $60?
Yeah, no, 59.
60.
59,
59?
I think so.
Well, so you're getting a quality, close to barrel proof product for $60. That high rye bourbon there is very nice, very nice. So
Right.
you can go out and grab that if you're in our single barrel club.
That's right. And what I'll tell you is that if you're in our single barrel club by being a member, okay, you're going to get that a lot cheaper. You're going to save about $8 off that bottle price because our paid members get bottles at below retail. That's one of the things about our program. It makes us very unique. If anything's less, we're going to release it. So right now we're in the process as we record this. We're going through the process of all our paid members securing their bottles, and then we're going to be releasing this to the public. Randall's is going to put a few bottles on their shelves. So if it's not all gone by the time you listen to this, you might want to reach out and find out how you can try to grab a bottle of this because it is absolutely delicious. We have a second barrel that's in. It's at the distributor up in Minnesota. Our partner is Ace Spirits up there, but it is our Four Roses barrel pick. Also picked that one in October, and that is a OBSV recipe, 128 proof, 10 year, 3 months. Woo! Can't wait to get that one too. I'm grinning all the way. Bob's grinning more than me though.
Yes, because it's a 6th tier OBSV, 128 proof, and it's just over 10 years old. I can't wait to get that one.
Well, hopefully it'll come soon, and we'll send out, once again, join up, become a member. You're going to have first dibs at getting that at a pretty good price. So head over to bourbonbanter.com, sign up, free membership, paid membership, whatever you want. You can check out the different memberships, the perks that come with that, and make a decision that way. And once again, if you have any questions, just drop us an email at podcast@bourbonbanter.com, and we will take care of you for sure. And the last thing I want to say about the membership here is I'm working with longtime Bourbon and Banter contributor and head of our single barrel program, Brent Joseph, to put together a really exciting plan for this year for our members, which is going to involve obviously not only the monthly group therapy sessions, but hopefully quarterly meetups in person in select cities. We're going to do our second annual Bourbon and Banter Summit in the fall as well down in Kentucky. So a lot of great things planned and a few surprises as well. So hope to have you guys join us as well. So that's enough about talking about us, Bob. I think it's time we turn our attention to whiskey news. What do you say?
There we go. Time for the whiskey headlines, folks.
All right, well, it's been a while since we've talked about New Riff, but they recently just named their first master distiller. They announced that head distiller Brian Sprance has been named the master distiller, and it's the first designation of this type for New Riff, right? They haven't had a master distiller before. Now, Sprance joined the company back in 2014 when it first started, and he was recruited by the founder and co-owner, Ken Lewis. So he, instead of hiring a traditional distiller, he really wanted to focus on someone who understood fermentation because he really believes that's where the greatest flavors are created. So he looked around and found Sprance, who was a former brewer for the Boston Beer Company. And he was already in Cincinnati, so it was a home run, in his opinion, and brought him aboard. And, of course, when he joined, he was mentored by the consulting master distiller and, quoted, godfather of rye whiskey, Larry Ebersold. So Larry is truly a master of rye with all of his experience in the industry, and he helped get Brian on the right track. And, well, voila, here we are today. He's now the new master distiller. So we want to congratulate him on the hard work and the well-deserved title, and we can't wait to see what sort of new things they're going to continue to release, because we've always been a fan of what they're doing and all the experimentation, and we look forward to a continued positive track record.
They do a lot of nice stuff, a lot of interesting and things we wouldn't typically think of coming out of New Riff, so it'll be nice to see where that heads.
Right, and if you have ever been near there and you haven't visited, shame on you. Great folks, check it out. On a slightly larger scale, Bob, there's been another... It's like every week there's a new one. There's another new distillery being built in Kentucky. This is from Staghorn, and this is, quote-unquote, the largest all-new independent distillery in Kentucky. And it's going to be Garrard County Distilling Company. Now, this is from Atlanta-based premium spirits company Staghorn, okay? And this thing is huge. They have dual 45 feet tall, 36-inch Vendome column stills. That's bigger than you and me combined. Two of them.
36-inch, 45 feet tall Vendome stills, copper stills. I'm trying to think. Imagine what that's like.
Well, I can tell you at the end of the day, or at the end of the year, they're going to be able to put out 150,000 barrels of whiskey a year, and that's going to add about 60 new jobs to the local community. And they are the first commercial distillery in the formerly dry county since the 1800s. So progress marches on.
Man, that is pretty amazing. They have plans for 24 aging warehouses by 2030, each holding 25,000 barrels. Well, they're not going to be doing any contract distilling, are they?
I don't know what you're talking about.
But, and this is Garrard County Distilling Company, opened by Staghorn. Nothing to do with Stag.
No, lawsuit.
Okay, beer or bourbon.
Lawsuit's pending, I'm sure, right? Well, that's probably why it's not called Staghorn Distillery, quite frankly, right?
Exactly, yes.
So this is just 30 minutes south of Lexington. So if you've done the Louisville route a few times, this will give you another reason to maybe stay in Lexington for a night or two and check out what they're doing. But along with those rickhouses, they're actually starting, it's 210 acres, so big property as well. 50,000 square foot distillery. They're going to have 2 of those 20,000 square foot rickhouses when they open up. But as Bob said, 24 over the coming years. They'll have standard visiting tasting room and a restaurant, all open by the end of 2024. And here's the thing. They already have 17,000 sourced whiskey barrels aging on site. So
somebody's got some money.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I'm not saying I haven't seen what the security's like, but you know, if anybody wants to go exploring, now would be the time before that place is up in operation.
Maybe we'll get the fucks down there to see what's going on.
That's right, exactly. And I want to know. I wonder who it could have been sourced from. That'd be really funny. That's right. So once again, the progress marches on. And another progress marches on. West Forest Whiskey Company out of Indiana has just announced what they're calling a game-changing capital raise. So these guys are in central Indiana, and they've entered in a partnership with a investment company to get more capital. And so the initial investment is around $3 million, with an additional $10 to $15 million spent in the future supporting production contracts and real estate. This is on top of some recent investments and developments they've done. Just 12 months ago, they opened a nearly $11 million tourism facility in Westfield, Indiana, next to the Grand Park Sports Complex. So this is going to allow them to keep developing, keep producing. And I'm sad to say I've never had any of their whiskey, Bob. I know precious little bit about these guys, but clearly they've got a lot of money to spend as well. So
they got a lot of money too.
So the Fucks will be also going there in the near future and finding out what's going on as well. I'm open to a little bit of money. I mean, my donut budget needs to be replenished. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and the donuts keep getting more expensive too, so we need just a little bit more.
That's right. All right, so some big investments there. On the more established producer side, Bardstown Bourbon Company has announced that they're opening the doors to their quote-unquote House of Bardstown. This is going to be an immersive cocktail and culinary pop-up experience coming to select cities this spring. And based on what they're saying here, each evening a limited number of guests will receive transportation to an undisclosed address. Doesn't sound sketchy at all. Once they go through
not at all.
And
not at all.
Once they go through the door, they'll dance, they'll dine, and they'll taste their way through a series of intricately crafted rooms and one-of-a-kind sensory experiences. Each a chapter in an illustrious story of Bardstown collaboration and innovation. And these limited run activations will appear in Louisville later this month, then Nashville, and then Dallas later this spring.
This makes me wonder, is there like a dominatrix taking them through this thing? This kind of sounds, it really sounds like this could be some very odd things happen over there. House of Bardstown. There's going to be a new series on HBO Max, like House of Cards or House of Dragons, House of Bardstown.
Well, and hopefully no Kevin Spacey character, right?
Well, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. That's what he should have said, but I'm not touching it.
All right. Well, it's going to be different. I mean, the fact that they're going to rebuild the same experience in multiple cities with these different rooms. That's some pretty high end sort of creative experience stuff. So I'll be curious to see what happens. I doubt that I'll have an opportunity to participate. But for those that are really getting into bourbon and the cocktails and the dining, it sounds like it could be a fantastic thing to be able to experience, assuming you get out the other side alive. Hey, and if this goes wrong, it'll be another one of those slasher films, right?
Assuming you get out the other side alive.
Well, you said it sounded sketchy too. I'm just saying.
It sounds sketchy. You know, it's like you're going downstairs.
Well,
why are there no windows in the
Here
room?
you go. It says, reading the press release, attendees will begin their adventure in the Origin Room, a modern space that reframes traditional perceptions of bourbon with its clean and crisp aesthetic. Then you're going to go into the Discovery Lab, immersing yourself in blends and one-of-a-kind tasting experiences.
Are they going to discover what bourbon's supposed to taste like there?
Oh, man. See, you said you weren't going to go there. Then you go to the 4 Square Bar, which I'm assuming has 4 square corners, where the essence of Barbados meets the rich heritage of bourbon. Oh, 4 Square rum. Got it. All right.
Oh, you better watch out.
Yeah,
Trey may have the copyright on something like this.
Yeah, then creating a captivating dance of flavors and ambience. And then the enigmatic Goose Island Lounge, which is a hidden gem reminiscent of a Chicago speakeasy. Guests will find a secretive and captivating escape to the city. Focus on the word escape. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, I think Goose Island, I know they're talking about the beer, but I'm thinking if there's a goose there running around biting everybody in the ass, I'm going to get the hell out of there real quick.
Well, obviously not probably an experience one should take an acid trip before going in. I'm just saying. Just saying. Just go in as normal as possible, and drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com and let us know how it went. I am so not getting invited, am I, by the brand?
No, you're not. Neither am I.
That's true.
They don't invite us to much,
Lastly, in the news world, the Craft Spirits Data Project has published some of their findings, focus on industry growth in 2023. So this is obviously an industry group for craft spirits. And just real quick, so we all have a definition of what this means by craft distillers. These are distillers defined as a U.S. licensed distilled spirits producer that has removed 750,000 proof gallons or less from bond. So they've basically taken them out of the warehouse, right? That they also market themselves as craft. They are not openly controlled by a large supplier and have no proven violations of the ACSA Code of Ethics, right? So this is the definition here. So when we think about the stats I'm going to give you. So the number of active craft distillers in the U.S. Last year grew by 2.4% to reach a total of 2,753 active craft distillers. So then you factor in all the other non-craft distillers, we're a pretty healthy number, considering I think it was something like 10, 12 years ago, we had less than 250 active distillery licenses. So there's been a little bit of growth the past 10 years. The U.S. craft spirits category volume reached over 14 million 9-liter cases in retail sales in 2022, with an annual growth rate of 6.1%. In value terms, the market reached $7.9 billion in sales, growing at an annual growth rate of 5.3%. U.S. craft spirits market share of total U.S. spirits maintained a 4.9% share in volume and increased value share to 7.7% in 2022, up from 7.5% in 21. And then when it comes to exports, craft spirits have increased, reaching 171,000 9-liter cases. And then lastly, and probably I think the biggest thing that to be proud of is employment numbers within the U.S. craft market continued to increase after the pandemic, reaching 27,368 full-time domestic employees. So craft is alive and well, and this is good timing to get this data because another conversation in our Discord community was focused around our craft distillery is going to be going the way of brewers, right, of craft brewers, because there's obviously been a lot of those that have gone out of business. Some have sold off successfully, but it's looking to be a downtrend in that world. So when, if ever, will that happen with the craft distillers? So at least for now, the data over the past year or so is showing that growth has continued. But would love to hear everyone listening's opinion on, do you think it's going to continue? There's always people joking about how there's going to be a fire sale on copper. Is that going to happen? Or what do we think the future of craft distilling is going to be? Drop us a note, podcast at bourbonbanter.com, or go to the website and drop in the comments according, next to this episode when it gets posted. We'd love to hear your opinions. But Bob, do you have any, fortune-telling thoughts on what's going to happen?
I just think over 2,700 craft distilleries, that's a hell of a lot of bad whiskey out there.
They're not all bad. Come on, you know that.
I didn't say they're all bad, but that's a lot of fucking bad whiskey. That's the only thing, is that only time will tell. If people can wait and age this stuff and do it properly, then it'll stick around. But how many of them have planned for that and not to release a 1, 2, 3-year-old thing that tastes like paint thinner with a little bit of apple color in it? So, I'm glad to see that it's got that many people working. I just hope they're working to make a better whiskey.
Well, one of the things that I didn't share, but I read and picked up quickly as I was scanning the document, obviously craft distilleries have the majority of their financial success in the community, local, right? Instead of of outside the state, because it's really, really hard to market and build a brand outside of your own territory when you have to put a lot of that into the hands of the distributor, who, if your product doesn't sell immediately, they're not going to put a lot of effort into it, which requires then you to put more time and effort. And even companies that are large producing with pretty significant budgets compared to craft distillers have the same problem. I've talked to several where they're moving into new markets. They're not getting the support they need from the distributor, so they're having to come up with creative ways to do this. So my question has always been with craft distillers is, if you can do it on a controlled budget, right? So you're not taking big investments or taking big loans. I think if you can create a good destination that's entertaining, does things that are unique and can bring people in and make it a regular rotation spot, right? Like a well-established brew pub, I think you can have success. And I think that can be long-lasting success. But if you're coming in and hard charging, trying to build a model where your brand has to be catapulted to national success, that's really where people are going to trip up and they're going to fail. Because, we've talked to distillers. We know some that started out and realized 6 to 12 months into it that they didn't even get a still that was big enough to support producing enough whiskey to sell if they were successful at that. So lots of challenges, and just because you can distill or just because you could start a distillery doesn't mean you know how to run a business. So I hope more will succeed than fail, because we don't want to see anything fail. And then those who do succeed, along your line, Bob, hopefully they continue to learn, improve, and make better products and give consumers a lot of choice and a lot of interesting options that fit the variety of palates that are out there in the industry. Right. I know Brent Joseph personally, who's in charge of our single barrel program, is looking for more high quality finished bourbon products in the market. And
who told him to do that?
Well, that's, he doesn't like people know, but he actually loves finished bourbons.
Who told you to do that, Brent? Damn it!
Yeah,
leave that shit alone. Come on now.
He keeps it down low, but if you go to his house in the back of his bar, he doesn't let people see it. He's got about 30 bottles of finished bourbon from all across the country.
Jesus. Man,
it's an addiction. It's an addiction. Well,
that makes me wonder that maybe the barbecue is a little too spicy and it's gone to his head,
maybe
and taste buds, to where he has to have the finished stuff. We've had conversations like that. Pops and I have for many years, and he knows I'm not crazy about finished whiskey. Although there have been a couple out there that I've actually enjoyed, but the number that I've enjoyed versus the number that I could give a shit about, there's a significantly off on the ladder there. So
this is true. All right, folks. Well, that's all the whiskey news we got for today. So I'm getting thirsty, so I think it's time, Bob, we talk about some new whiskey releases. All right, I think the most exciting thing that's happened recently in terms of a new whiskey release is our friends at Green River. It seems like only this time last year, or actually it's 22, I think, Green River announced the release of their flagship high rye bourbon, and I was in love with it, right? What wasn't like easy drinking, sessionable bourbon at a $34.99 price point is absolutely fantastic. When I heard that they were coming out with their own rye whiskey a while back, I was thrilled. I couldn't wait to have it. Had an opportunity to taste the White Dog version of it when we were down there in October and earlier in the year as well. It's fantastic. And stunned to learn it was a 95.5 rye. So this is the same mash bill recipe that is used at our friends at MGP in Indiana, right? That's famous, right? It's in Bullet Rye, for example, very ubiquitous bottle all over the place. 95% rye, 5% malted barley, same mash bill. So the question always was, how's it going to taste? Is it going to be different? Does the world need another 95.5 rye? Well, I got my sample bottle a week and a half ago. I've written a review already, so hopefully you've seen that on the website. But the definitive answer is yes, the world is definitely in need of another one because this one is dramatically different. 95.5 rye, distilled, bottled by Green River down in Owensboro, Kentucky. And they did us a solid, once again, entering the market at $34.99. So they have 3 products at that price point. High rye bourbon, wheated bourbon, and now their rye whiskey. It's going to be hitting markets February 1st, which means it's on the market already. Now, it's not in every state yet, so you're going to have to keep your eyes open for that. But I can tell you this. It is sweeter than you would expect for a 95.5 rye, but still very much a rye whiskey. Compare it to something like Bullet, and Bullet smells like you dumped a pepper shaker in it, comparatively so. So if you find rye a little polarizing, Green River rye might just be a rye to change your mind and get you excited about it. And I can tell you it also works fantastic in a drink like an old-fashioned as well. So I highly recommend it. And Bob, if you can drag yourself out here in the next 48 hours, there may be some left for you to try. I'm on my second bottle. I'm on my second sample bottle. I drank the first one.
What people can't say, Pops is just sitting over there with a straw in the bottle. Don't even worry about a glass. Just puts a straw in. Just goes right through it.
That's right. And I know they had a huge first day. The first day they shipped a ton of this. So the market is very excited about it as well. All right. On the other end of the spectrum, Heaven Hill has announced their 2024 Heaven Hill Heritage Collection release. This is going to be an 18-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon. It'll be begin shipping in early March 2024. And it features the Heaven Hill whiskey mash bill comprised of 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye, bottled at a nice, comfortable 120 proof. Once again, age statement of 18 years, and it's made up of a blend or a batch of 133 barrels that were produced in December 05 and pulled from the third floor of Rickhouse 1L. Now, I said other end of the spectrum. That's because Green River Rye, $34.99. Heaven Hill 2024 Heritage Collection release, $299. So, once again, this is a bottle that most of us can't afford and most of us wouldn't even be able to get if we could. But if you get lucky and have an opportunity to taste it, love to hear your feedback and whether or not you like it. So, if you like older whiskey, I'm sure this is going to be right up your alley if you can locate a bottle. So, put in your request now to your favorite retail store owner that you have in your back pocket.
Yeah, I ain't seeing that one for $300. No, I haven't seen any of them.
No, I'm hoping a sample's in the mail, but I haven't got it yet. Speaking of other things you don't want to, that some people put in their back pocket, Chicken Cock Whiskey has announced their 9-year-old single barrel double oak whiskey. You're a big fan of this, aren't you, Bob?
Or their front pocket.
Or their front pocket, right? So this is an exclusive single barrel double oak Kentucky whiskey that they're doing in partnership with Garden and Gun. And when I read that, I immediately was like, I ain't going to be able to afford this one either. It's inspired by the South and its time-honored traditions. It's imbued with history, and it's now available on the Chicken Cock website and will be available soon in retail for $149.99.
What time-honored Southern traditions are they referring to here, Pops?
Well, not only that, but how do they imbue them into the bottle of whiskey?
I can't. I don't have the whiskey in front of me, but I am getting a strong nose of bullshit here. It has the mash bill recipe for bourbon. Okay, what?
But it's not a bourbon.
Double oak whiskey.
Yeah, so they say that it's the mash bill of bourbon, okay, but here's the thing. So apparently and they're blaming the barrel shortage from 2014. The spirit was aged in bourbon barrels for 7 years. Okay, so it was aged originally in used bourbon barrels. Then they decided to finish it in a new American white oak barrels to elevate it to our standards.
Yeah, okay. This sounds like somebody really fucked up. That's what this sounds like.
Which meant was we put a whole bunch of bourbon into used barrels, and it's not really good. So we're going to put it into some new barrels. We realized they didn't
do shit.
Right.
So now here's new barrels.
Right.
Oh, Jesus. Well,
now once again, I haven't had it, so we're poking some fun at this, but there's only 12 barrels of this available. Okay. So there's not a lot, but once again, $149 is a lot of money on principle. So once again, having not tasted this is definitely one we would say try it at a bar. Don't spend $150 until you've had a taste of this, because once again, it's a different process, different experience. It might be good. It might be good. $150 good, probably not, but it's your money, so spend it how you want. We just report the facts and comment on them. It's make it as amusing as possible.
Chicken cock for $150. Just go. You can get a couple cases of fighting cock for the same thing. I bet you're going to be better off with the latter.
Well, there you go.
Just I don't know. Be careful where you get your cock from, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right, and how much you pay for it. Well, moving on down the tracks, let's talk about our friends over at Chattanooga Whiskey. They've got a new release coming out, Batch 36, which is their herbal infused whiskey. This is inspired by a traditional Krauter liqueurs of Germany. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Did you actually get that one? Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I'm not sure. Krauter.
I'm looking at this, and there's no way in hell I would have pronounced that right.
Yeah, Krauter liqueurs of Germany. It's an experimental bourbon liqueur combining German malt-laden mash bill with an infusion of uber-traditional botanicals, including star anise, ginseng, bilberry, and sarsaparilla. Sarsaparilla is fun. I've always liked saying that word. That's easy. It's their traditional trademark Tennessee high malt whiskey, which I absolutely love. And with the addition of German specialty malts, including pale wheat malt and chocolate malt, and then infused with 100% real botanicals that we mentioned above. So after aging in a single-use bourbon barrel for an entire year, it's now a dark candy syrup. And our dark candy syrup was then blended into the spirit before bottling in a green bottle, symbolic of the German herbal liqueur style. Now, they've done a lot here. Fancy bottle, lots of stuff. Are they selling it
they've done a lot.
Are they selling it for $149? No, because the folks at Chattanooga Whiskey believe mere mortals should buy stuff. So they're releasing it for $49.99 for a full 750 milliliter bottle. Now, once again, this is for people who truly want to drink cures, right? This is not a bourbon, folks, in case you totally missed that. This is going to be something really, really unique and kind of fun. And at $50 a bottle, you may regret it, but at the same point in time, you have made worse purchases, and you've made worse value purchase decisions. I am almost sure of it. And it's only 81 proof, so if someone comes to your house and doesn't like anything high proof, you can give them two. And this will probably make a great after dinner drink.
Digestif.
Thank you.
Digestif.
This will make a great after dinner drink after you've eaten 20 donuts and a whole prime rib.
So you say, so this is what you do after a crave case of White Castle. You drink this as digestive. Yeah.
Yes. Or an expulsory beverage. So after White Castles. But yeah, so there you go. Haven't had it. Don't know. Sounds unique. Sounds different. Once again, you get a chance to sip on that. Let us know what you think about that. All right, so that one's kind of fun. The bottle's really kind of cool, nice and green, and almost looks like you get poison on yourself. But anyway, I think it's time we finally release this news, which we've been sitting on and muffling, because this, this is the kind of news that's going to make you, shake off a bad hangover.
It'll make you shake off a lot of things, probably. But the our Fucks team really came through this time. The most successful woman on the planet has something very unique coming to market geared towards the whiskey fans in her audience. You all know who I'm talking about here. We're talking about Taylor Swift, all right? Several members of the Bourbon and Banter Fucks team caught her wildly successful Eras Tour last summer, And we began to hear hints of this project, and they further confirmed it in the fall leading up to the NFL playoffs, because we have several of the fucks are around the Kansas City area, and they heard a little bit more about this. And so unbeknownst to everybody, Taylor Swift has been working in collaboration with Bourbon Women founder Peggy Noe Stevens for several years, planning this project, which when we heard that and we saw Peggy was involved, we're like, whoa, this could be really, really interesting and definitely legit. So apparently Peggy, over the last several years, she introduced Taylor to a number of women in the whiskey industry. Rebecca Harris, who was the founder and chief distiller at Catoctin Creek out in Virginia. Heather Green, who's the master distiller and founder down at Milam Green. Britt Kulsveen, who everybody's familiar with from Willett, as well as Elizabeth McCall, who at the time they were introduced, Elizabeth had just come on board, but is now the master distiller at Woodford Reserve. So they all met Swift during stops on her 1989 tour back in 2015 in Houston, D.C., and Louisville. She was in all those places, and this, I don't know how they worked this out, but Peggy got introductions for those women with Taylor. Swift was only 26 at the time, but she'd been bitten by the whiskey bug because of the influence of some of the band members who would enjoy a pour, I'm sure, or more backstage after the show, and probably before the show, and maybe during the show. I don't know, but we all know what kind of a business person Taylor Swift is. So she was looking at where the market was going with American whiskey. She saw an opportunity to do something really special for her fans and her band, and she began visiting distilleries on off days on a tour. So when she was traveling, she'd taste barrels with the aforementioned women at their respective distilleries, and she started compiling notes about what she really liked, and then she worked with each of them to craft something that could help them put her signature on their standard product or something that they were already doing. She didn't want to come in and reinvent the wheel. So this is really unique. Talking about celebrity whiskey, first of all, Pops, you and I have long been, critics of most of the celebrity whiskey. For good reason, because most of it we've had sucks. But this sounds really, really interesting. So the results are a variety of barrels ranging in age from 7 to 8 years, each of which are going to be tied into one of Taylor Swift's iconic albums to create a very unique fan experience. So each release is going to come with an exclusive barrel-proof NFT that gives the owner access to never-before-seen digital concert footage from that album's tour via a streaming link, as well as a 30-minute acoustic set, apparently, that she recorded, a solo acoustic set that she recorded at the corresponding distillery once the barrel was bottled, and they were doing something while they're getting this all done. I don't know how this stuff flew under the radar, as busy as she's been.
Lots of legal NDAs, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then also video of her and her friends having a happy hour with a bottle, making drinks, just hanging out and talking to the camera like it's a one-on-one experience, like you're hanging out, and the only people that have access to this are the folks who buy the bottles from these single barrels. So the releases are going to be a formal partnership with Bourbon Women organization. It's expected to be formally announced at this year's Bourbon Classic, which is just a few weeks from now. Taylor and Peggy Noe Stevens worked together on the details in secret, complete silence from everybody, and the Bourbon and Banter fucks are the only ones that can bring you this information. The forensic undercover knowledge seekers that we have, ladies and gentlemen, are the only people who got the in on this. So they're going to announce it at the Bourbon Classic. We're not sure when the bottles will be available, but we're reported that there, at least initially, there's going to be a handful of bottles, one being Tortured Poets, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, which is paired with the new record that's coming out in April, Tortured Poets Department. That's going to be 115 proof Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey selected from Noah's Mill barrels with Britt Kulsveen. So that should be really interesting because I've always been a fan.
As if the news of that release, was it yesterday? Wasn't big
enough,
right?
Yeah, exactly, for the Grammys. And when you think about it and you think about the label on the Noah's Mill bottles, I can see that pairing perfectly with something that Swift's going to do. So I'm not sure what the label's going to look like, but it'll probably wind up being something that is its own iconic thing. There's going to be a Midnight Smoke Rye whiskey paired with the most recent album, Midnights. That's a 7-year-old Catoctin Creek 92 proof rye whiskey finished with smoked staves. I don't have any more information, but she and Rebecca Harris at Catoctin Creek worked on that. So smoked stave finish. There you go, Brent. Evermore 4-cask whiskey pairs with the album of the same name, Evermore, which is this one is coming through Milam and Green. It's a 94 proof blend, American whiskey. It's made up of 67% Milam and Green Texas straight bourbon whiskey, 13% Milam and Green Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, 10% Tennessee whiskey, which is Swift's adopted home state that she had moved to when she was 13, and 10% Pennsylvania rye whiskey, which is that's her home state. So that's crafted with Heather Green. There's going to be one called Double Lover, which is paired with the album Lover, that is a double-oaked Woodford Reserve, aged and finished in Cabernet barrels.
Wow, that's going to be sweet.
So I'm actually, it's going to be sweet, but I'm really interested to see how sweet that's going to be. 90.4 proof. She did that with Elizabeth McCall. And the last one that we have, I don't know if this one's going to happen or not, but they just sent me this one, is Red Bottled and Bond whiskey, paired with the album named Red, which is a holiday soft red winter wheat bourbon, bottled and bond, that she selected with Nancy Fraley out at Holiday Distillery, which is about a half an hour outside of Kansas City. So some people believe that a certain other individual was influential in that particular pairing there. But I had a friend who had that cask strength bottled and bond holiday red winter wheat last week that said it was phenomenal.
Good stuff.
There's some bourbon coming down the market, a celebrity bourbon. We don't have a price point yet. Personally, I think that, she could charge whatever she wants for these things. People are going to buy it. This is a whole different market that's going to be buying this stuff than what typically goes after celebrity whiskey. So it'll be interesting to hear and see what happens. But, I wouldn't know a Taylor Swift song if it jumped up and bit me in the ass. But I have but what she's been able to do and the positivity that she brings to people, man, you look out there and you see tens of thousands of people that are in the happiest mood they could possibly be in. Maybe there need to be more people like that. Well, this coming from the bitter old fuck here doing the Bourbon and Banter podcast, but
Taylor Swift touching the heart and soul of an old crippled spirit like you, Bob.
Well, man, she got screwed over, or they tried to screw her over with her own music, and she said, "Okay, kiss my ass. I'm going to re-record the shit," and it's like I was laughing my ass off at that. So, more power to her. I have an infinite amount of respect for somebody that has been able to do what she's been able to do. And this actually sounds super interesting.
Well, I'm with you. I loathe it when a celebrity gets involved, especially when a celebrity is sort of faking it, right?
Yeah.
And we had the whole thing with Chris Stapleton, who I love as a musician, and I do know his music, and felt like he had a lot of integrity. And then he did this whole traveler thing with Buffalo Trace. It's not even a bourbon. And then the whole confusion about he doesn't drink, but yes, he does drink. And he had it totally ruined it for me. Taylor Swift obviously has made it very clear that she's not drinking during her tour right now. But maybe this is why, because she's been doing the work, been doing the research, and didn't want to double down. But I think this is going to be good for whiskey in the sense that she's working with other women. So she's lifting up women in the industry, which, we're big fans of that happening. And she's not changing the recipe. She's taking it and creating something unique and tying it in. And so it's not like, I've tasted 500 barrels and I created my own recipe, which that's the stuff I hate, right? I think really the only place this breaks down for me is when it gets to the price point, right? Because if you're going to be selling this to people who normally don't drink whiskey and you're going to charge them an outrageous number, that gets a little bothersome. But other than that, she can bring, a lot of people who aren't drinking bourbon are going to be buying these things.
And, we don't know. She could put the stuff out for, $100 a bottle.
Yeah.
You look and see what the stuff from Milam and Green. Milam and Green does a 3-cask bourbon. Mm-hmm. This is a 4-cask American whiskey, and that price is around $70.
Right. Well, she keep it $100, not go above 100. Then I'm not going to for being her and everything.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic to see.
I mean, you're getting a new record with each. I mean, it's a 30-minute set. You're getting a new record with each of these things.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a lot going into this. Clearly, this is not something that she's phoned in at all.
Absolutely.
So, hats off to her for putting that kind of thought and planning into this. I don't know how the hell they kept it quiet.
Well, hats off to the Fox team, and you, Bob. You want to make sure you send them a little cash so they can buy another round of some old overold at the bar for a job well done. You know, we don't have the high end budget, but we want to appreciate it. Hey, folks, if you want to be part of our Fox team, our forensic undercover knowledge seekers team, we are open to accepting new applications. So send an email to podcast@bourbonbanter.com. In your own words, let us know why you think you would be a great undercover forensic knowledge seeker for us. And at the same time, let us know what your top 3 favorite whiskeys are and what's your biggest bullshit moment in whiskey. You share all that with us. Go ahead and send that podcast@bourbonbanter.com. We'll review. And if we think you can make the cut, well, we'll schedule time for a private call with Bob and I, and we'll kind of get into it and see if you've got what it takes, but always looking to add a few more fuckers to the team.
That's right. Yeah. And don't send it to fucks@bourbonbanter because then you get a whole different
podcast
kind of thing in response.
bourbonbanter.com.
Yeah. Podcast@bourbonbanter.com.
I'm going to name a brand, Bob, and I want to see if it instills fear and loathing. That brand's name is Whistle Pig. I know right now you're asking, what did they do this time? Right?
I think you know where I stand on that.
All right. Well, Whistle Pig, because, you know, they've obviously run out of fresh ideas with rye whiskey or pricing schemes. They can't go higher than $500 a bottle.
I was going to say they weren't fresh ideas to begin with because it's somebody else's shit.
Well, yeah, but you know, to be, you know, from a business perspective, it was brilliant, right? Because nobody was drinking it, and they made it all big, but they jumped the shark, and they've done it again because now for January, just in time for this past dry January, they announced their cannabis infused non-whiskey. All right, so just set that in cannabis non-whiskey. Okay, so
the fuck is a non-whiskey? It's juice. That's what it is. It's a juice.
It's non-whiskey because there's no alcohol in it. Okay, but it gets better because there's also no THC in the cannabis portion either. So it doesn't get you drunk. It doesn't get you high. So this is not a drink for Fridays.
So it's just juice,
but it's got terpenes in it, Bob. Terpenes. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Am I pronouncing that right?
I have no idea. I don't know what the fuck a terpene is.
You don't know what a terpene is? Okay.
No, I think turpentine because that's what some of the shit tastes like anyway. So,
well, what does it says here? It's 100% non-psychoactive, so no THC in it, won't get you high, but it has cannabis terpenes in it, and according to them, it adds aromas and mouthfeel that are often missing from non-alcohol innovation. Now, you and I have had a lot of non-alcoholic beverages that are
We've
trying
had
to some
non-alcoholic beverages.
No, that was a lot that one day for sure.
That's true. That was a lot. We had like 12 cocktails.
And not once did I think that, you know, terpenes would make this better. But I don't know anything. I'm not a chemistry guy. But the issue is that they've put this out there, and they've named it Dank and Dry Old Fashioned. So it's actually an old fashioned. They've added in some sweeteners into it as well. You can buy it alone in a 750 ml one hitter bottle for $49.99. Or you can buy it alongside the brand's pig shaped cocktail smoker and dime baggie of cocktail smoking chips in the hot box bundle for $64.20.
The fucking hell, people.
You know, my 22-year-old college graduate student is finding that very amusing. But you know it's quality when they recommend that you pour it over ice.
To dilute the, yeah.
Well, like a regular old fashioned. So, all right. So why is this on the bullshit list? Well, if it's not apparently obvious, I personally find an alcoholic an alcohol company pushing a product blending cannabis and both of them missing their key ingredient, just ridiculous. Because if I want a THC-free product, well, I wouldn't want a THC product, and I don't want an alcohol-free product. I know there people are, but this is like a combination that makes no sense. If you want to go alcohol-free, then go alcohol-free, right? And that's fine. But why would you throw cannabis in if it doesn't actually have the flavor
Without
or
cannabis.
the impact? Because it does something else, but then you're marketing that. Once again, it's brilliant marketing to just a weird idea. So
Remember when we were talking earlier in part of the podcast about a lot of things that children don't do? Those are the children that would be going after this shit.
mm-hmm. There's definitely some paste eating going on here.
Yeah, this $50 fucking dollars,
Right.
For
For
this
no
horse
alcohol, no THC.
and it's got a little bit of maple syrup added for flavor and color. Okay,
I guarantee you that Aaron can whip you up a better tasting mocktail that's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper.
yeah, and I know because there wouldn't be one because I don't fucking want one.
You know the classic mocktail? Just get yourself a kitty cocktail. A little 7-Up, a little grenadine, you're done. Boom.
No, just give me some water or bourbon. Those are the options. Thank you very much. My kitty cocktail, my mocktail is water.
It's water. All right. Well, you heard
It's
it,
water.
folks. Bob Bennett's kitty cocktail water coming your way soon.
That's right. You get it right out of the fucking tap. You don't got to go buy a big ass jug of some shit that comes from a Fiji stream.
All you
It's
gotta do-
actually just a guy named Fiji sitting in his bathtub filling the thing with water.
Send $5 in a prepaid return envelope to Old Men on the Porch, courtesy Bourbon and Banter, and we'll send you instructions on how to get that kitty cocktail out of the tap. Bob will write you a
There you
personal
go.
note and sign
There
it.
you go.
All right, Bob.
I feel like we need to have a new portion. Maybe we need to change bourbon bullshit to get off my lawn. The get off my lawn portion of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. Or actually, you know what? This just in, new service from Bourbon and Banter. You can now rent Bob and Pops to come and sit on your front porch and entertain you and your neighbors for hours. We will even bring a bottle or two of whiskey with us, all included in your service fee. Send booking requests to podcast@bourbonbanter.com. Please include your address and zip code and date of preferred visit, and we'll get back to you.
That's right. If you've got people that you need to yell at that you don't want to do the yelling, we are available for hire.
And if you book early, we'll even come and do some visits around holidays, and we'll bring Banta with us as well.
Well, yeah, but that's a significant upcharge.
Don't worry about it. If they don't buy this product, they'll have some cash. They don't buy all those other
There
products.
you go. There you go.
Right. All right. So, Bob, you go to a nice restaurant. You're like, I'm going to get a nice meal. I'm going to get a nice pour of bourbon, maybe something I don't own in my house. You open up the menu, start perusing the menu. And you know what really gets my goat is when I'm reading that list and I'm reading bourbons and I see things like Canadian Club on the menu under bourbons, right? How is it that restaurants, right, where you're paying a premium experience, can't even get their liquor menus right? And this is not something that I even came up with for bourbon bullshit today. This is from our community members sending in examples of how people are miscategorizing things on menus, misrepresenting details, and all confusing the shit out of everybody. Have you ever experienced this, Bob?
All the time. Crown Royal, Seagram's 7, Seagram's VO, Templeton Rye, all these things under bourbon. Or what I find more frequently, because I typically don't look at a whiskey menu, I go up and look at the bar and see what they actually have so that I know. Because the whiskey menu sometimes is not correct, as we're talking about. But the wait staff not having accurate information. You say, what bourbon do you have behind the bar? Well, we've got Jack Daniels. Stop it. Okay? All you out there that are doing the whole, well, it is bourbon. Fuck you. Just shut up. It's Tennessee whiskey. I ask for bourbon. They say, we got Crown Royal. We got this. It's not fucking bourbon. Know what you're fucking selling. Don't start this shit. And if I'm clearly a bourbon drinker. I'm interested in something, and all I see are the Beam Suntory lineup And that's it. Nothing against Beam Suntory. They have cornered the market. But you've got Jim Beam and Makers and Basil Hayden. I'm good. There's nothing wrong with any of those, but it's just not that interesting.
So folks, what you're clearly hearing is it's more than a menu issue. It's a general hospitality education issue here. There are bars like Century Bar in Dayton, Ohio, that has one of the best bourbon programs in the country. Not only do they have a great selection, but they have a training program, bar none. Everywhere else. When you start there, you start in an apprenticeship. You spend at least a year, if not longer. And then in order to move up to a full-time bartender, you have to take a test that's harder than any other I've seen to show that you understand bourbon. Okay. Not just what it is, but how to recommend it, how to talk about it. And I get it. Bourbon is trendy. It's popular. And a lot of bars are saying, we now have an expansive bourbon thing. But if you are not delivering on the training, the education necessary for your bar staff to sell it properly, okay, it's a bad experience. And I get it. It's hard to find good employees. It's hard to keep good employees. Okay. But once again, if you are going to give training and you're going to invest in your people, that's a good way to help protect them a little bit. Pay them well, obviously, right? Treat them well, but invest them a little bit. All right. Sure. They may leave a year or two from now and take some of that knowledge with them, but talk to brands. Brands would love to provide you with more training. Yeah, they're going to skew it toward their products, but you know what? The more training you get, the better educated they are, the better consumer experience there is. I remember a whiskey restaurant in St. Louis, where we're from, opened up years ago, Bob. Gamblin' Whiskey House. They touted it's going to be this whiskey, and I was so excited. Well, first of all, it was a little challenging because they had this tiny little whiskey bar up front with a great selection, but the rest of it was a restaurant, so it really wasn't a whiskey bar. But that aside, I went in and had dinner and was sitting there, and there was a couple couples next to us as a group, and they ordered some whiskey, and they brought out flights on trays. They didn't say anything about the whiskeys in the tray. They just delivered them, left the people to their own device, right? They went to tasting. The gentleman tasted the first bourbon. It was fine. He went to the second one, and he starts choking and starts spitting it across the table. And we're like, what's going on? And it was like super high proof, and it turns out it was Booker's. So here's someone who didn't know a lot about bourbon, was given a flight tray. Booker's was the second one on the flight when it clearly should have been the last. And the bartender or the waitstaff took no effort at all to explain what they were, to talk about the proofs or anything of that nature. And I looked it up in the menu, and Booker's should have been last in the flight, right? But they took the menus away. It was misplaced on there. There was no reference, no education. And the guy almost choked to death, right? I mean, it was quite bad. The experience that happened. And this continues to this day. And I've talked to restaurant group owners and things of that nature, and they're like, oh, we'd like to do training, but then they won't pay for it. So brands will offer it for free. There's lots of different things out there. We have Drink Curious, which is our dedicated spirits tasting business, which will do it. Companies need to invest in third parties to come in, to read menus, to update that information, to teach their staff how to sell, to teach them how to have proper glassware, for God's sakes, right? How many times have you gone into a whiskey place and they actually don't have whiskey glasses?
That's just frequently. But for anybody listening to this that is in the hospitality industry, and if you do flights and you have a beginner's flight or an introduction to whiskey flight, and you have Booker's on that flight, if I find you, I will take that bottle of Booker's and bash you over the head with it, because absolutely nobody who is just getting into whiskey should be given Booker's as part of any flight until they have become more accustomed to drinking whiskey. Booker's is a good whiskey. I'm not saying it's not, but that whiskey is one of the few, even for those of us who drink barrel proof regularly, that always drinks at its proof or hotter. It's a very, very hot whiskey. I don't care for it personally. I'll drink it, but I'm not going to reach for that. I'll drink for something that may be higher proof but doesn't drink that hot. So that is an ignorant thing to do to somebody. And you're going to throw that person off a whiskey for a while if you do that.
No, you're exactly right. And when I do my Bourbon 101 tastings, Bob, I always tell people, if the first bourbon you ever taste is Booker's, you're never drinking whiskey again, right? So the moral of this, or the summary, if you will, is education. And we understand if you don't know bourbon like we know bourbon, you don't know that you're making mistakes. So this is where a little bit of investment, right? You probably have patrons who know whiskey, right? It doesn't even have to cost you a dime. Maybe a free drink, right? Hey, Bob, I know you're really into whiskey. Can I give you a free drink? Would you review my menu and let me know if you see anything out of line, right? Or, hey, bourbon, Drink Curious. You guys do tastings, do trainings. You come in and talk to my bar staff in a non-brand, a brand agnostic setting, right? Happy to do it. Because the more you know, the better educate your consumers, which then ultimately gets them to order more, to buy more, which, hey, at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right? So take a little time, invest a little bit. You're going to yield some great results from it.
You're not going to go into a restaurant and ask, what cab do you have available by the glass? And they're going to say, well, we have this Merlot. That's not going to happen. You're not going to ask, I'd like to have something, red wine that's a little lighter, that'll pair well with this dish. And they say, well, we've got 2 Pinot Noirs by the glass. They're not going to say we have a cab by the glass because that's a much heavier pour. So when you get to whiskey, why would it be anything different? You've only got, let's say, if you're lucky, 3 or 4 of each of those red wine varietals by the glass in a restaurant. But you've got 15 bottles of bourbon behind the bar. Why don't you know what those 15 bottles are like, to where if somebody says, can I have the Four Roses small batch? We're out of that. Well, what would you recommend? Oh, well, we got the Knob Creek, and we've got the Wild Turkey 81, and we've got Jack Daniel. No, it's a high rye bourbon. Recommend another high rye bourbon. If you don't know, find out.
All right. So, folks, lots of room to up your game, and you know what? Beware. We travel for tastings. We go different cities. We may just stop by and see how good your game is. So remember, a little investment in your staff, a little bit of training, it's going to go a long way.
And if any of you tell your patrons that, oh, yeah, bourbon has to be made in Kentucky, I'm getting that Booker's bottle, I'm beating you too.
That's right. Stop the campaign of misinformation. We got enough of that happening from foreign countries. So let's not screw up bourbon, okay, folks? Let's be proud of that. But you know what, Bob? This behavior, this misinformation trend, and uneducation aren't limited to just hospitality. Not to single that. I'm seeing this, and once again, our members are pointing this out too, more and more in digital and print content. So third-party content, and so what I'm talking about is like magazines. Digital publications that are throwing out things like cocktail recipes that when you sit down and read the recipe, if you know what it's supposed to be, you look at that and you're like, what the hell is this, right? They're calling a recipe by the wrong name, or they're putting things in without giving enough details and education. And for me, this is an interesting concern because it's just not bad when humans do it, but now with the proliferation of AI generated content, right? So if you don't know anything about bourbon, you can go into an application like Chat GPT and say, produce for me 5 bourbon cocktail recipes that are thematic around X and X. And it will do that. It doesn't tell you if they're good. If you don't know anything about bourbon, you can't look at the recipe. If you don't know anything about ratios, you can't look at the recipe and judge it. And then you post this on your site because you're looking to get clicks, right? Or help with SEO optimization. So there's going to be this continuing increasing proliferation of not just bad cocktail ideas, but incorrect information that's out there. And the fact that humans are doing it right now and the AI stuff is just starting to build on top of that really concerns me, right? Because it's misinformation once again so now you go into that bar, right, that isn't properly trained, and you order something and you get something that's totally different than what you think it should be. Who's right? The customer? Customer's always right? Maybe not. I mean, it's an interesting thing because we even see it, where even big brands make mistakes. I mean, I remember on Instagram, a very well-known and beloved bourbon brand was putting out a recipe for a Boulevardier, right? and they said we only needed a 1/4 ounce of bourbon, of their bourbon in the recipe. Clearly that had to be a typo, right? Right? I mean, if not, there's a big problem. I mean, it needs to be fixed anyway, but oh my God, you put an ounce of Campari, an ounce of sweet vermouth, and a 1/4 ounce of bourbon?
How do you even measure a 1/4 ounce?
I don't know. I mean, I usually do it in like 1/4 bottle, half bottle, 3/4 bottle.
I don't even know. Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about all this AI generated content too. What goes along with this, people proofread your shit. Not just bourbon, but everybody. Proofread the stuff that you're publishing. I'm reading grammatical errors left and right on fucking CNN. On news organizations. So in addition to putting up bogus bad cocktail recipes, don't talk about, that the mash bill is 73% core, COR, because you forgot the N because you're a moron. And you just let somebody else, Sorry, Pop. Pop's almost choked on
Almost
that.
choked on that one. I did not see that example coming.
Just be smarter,
I thought
people.
you were going to say 73% porn. I mean, so that would have been more
No, well, that
typical
it
typo.
could be that too. Yeah, that's an example. Yes, just depends upon who's writing the piece, I guess. It's goddamn autofill.
Now
Said
I
Brent
suddenly feel threatened with my proofreading.
Yes.
Well, I mean, hey, there's random typo mistakes, right? And then there's just always garbage, right? So the bottom line is here, people, are quote unquote thirsty for knowledge, right? They're looking up cocktail recipes. I mean, right now, if you go look for an old fashioned cocktail recipe, you're going to find a gazillion ways to make it. And some of them just don't make sense. Some of them are a preference choice. Some of them are correct. But how do you know, right? So you have to experiment, you have to do it. So, and that's just with the ones that are legit. So when you start having people put things that are just totally misneighbored, when you wake up one day and you start making an old fashioned for a guest to find out that it's actually the recipe for Manhattan because someone mislabeled it on their website or didn't know what they were doing, that's a problem. So once again, tie that back to the hospitality thing. Once again, don't get too clever with your cocktail recipes. I don't need to see a unique twist on a drink totally called something that it's not when it's actually an old fashioned. All right. Just call it your restaurant name, Manhattan or old fashioned, right? I have a lot of people that come to me and say, I want so-and-so. And I'm like, well, what's in it? And they're like, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, that's an old fashioned. Like, oh, okay, great. So education, accuracy, attention to detail, just the normal things that old men on a front porch with a shotgun and a fifth of bourbon are looking for.
I don't have a shotgun, Pop. Sorry.
Then they're not going to get off your lawn, Bob.
Oh, they're going to get off my lawn because I got a Louisville Slugger.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, you're built for comfort, not speed like me.
That's true. That's true. But I got pretty good aim.
They're not going to get through your front door. I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, hey, once you forget, I've also got the hounds.
That's right. You do have the hounds. That's right. And they will outnumber anybody coming to your house.
They will outnumber anybody coming in, and they'll come and get you.
That's right.
They're wonderful and they're loyal.
All right. Well, folks, that's enough of us screaming from the porch. That's what we should call this segment, screaming from the porch.
Screaming from the porch. Yeah, there you go.
That's right. But I
envision us, if they ever do decide to make a real-life Muppet movie, who Statler and Waldorf are going to be.
Absolutely. And if we ever get any production budget, we could do something fun with that concept. I guarantee it.
That's right.
All right, folks. Well, that's it for Bourbon Bullshit. If you have something that's really pissing you off lately, you get a couple options here. One, email it to us at podcast@bourbonbanter.com or join our community. Free or paid, you're going to get access to the Discord server. You're going to be able to chime in, let us know what's on your mind. And, if we can help talk you off the cliff, well, we'll do it. Maybe we're not the best people for that, but if not, we'll make sure you have plenty of momentum when you go off the cliff. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in for the 37th episode of the Bourbon and Banter podcast. As always, we appreciate you tuning in and giving us your attention, even if it's just fleeting, as most people, with our attention spans being less than a goldfish. Feedback, good or bad, drop us a line at podcast@bourbonbanter.com. I'll read the good. Bob will shred the bad and hunt you down and hit you in the head with a Booker's bottle. And you know what? It'll be empty too, because we're not going to waste that whiskey on you. So once again, if you like what you hear, also share it with some friends. We could use a few more people listening, and drop us a review at Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. On behalf of everyone at Bourbon and Banter, thanks again. And remember, folks, when you drink curious.
Well, what's your preference?
Bourbon, if you got it.
Bourbon from Kentucky.
I should certainly fucking hope so.